السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه وعلى ثم ما بعد. We'll continue our class in the explanation of the book عمدة الأحكام by Al-Hafiz عبد الغني بن عبد الواحد المقدسي رحمه الله. And we're still in the book of the prayer, in the chapter of the description of the prayer of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the author رحمه الله, he said, عن عبد الله بن عمر رضي الله عنهما, under the authority of Abdullah bin Umar, may Allah be pleased with both of them. قال أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم كان يرفع يديه حذو منكبيه أو منكبيه إذا افتتح الصلاة. That the Messenger صلى الله عليه وسلم used to raise his hands to the level of his shoulders when he starts the prayer. وإذا كبر للركوع, and when he makes takbir, when he says Allahu Akbar, to go down to perform ruku', to bow down. وإذا رفع رأسه من الركوع رفعهما كذلك. And likewise, if he raises his head from bowing down, he raises his hands as well. قال وقال سمع الله لمن حمده ربنا ولك الحمد. And he says سمع الله لمن حمده ربنا ولك الحمد. قال وكان لا يفعل ذلك في السجود. And he used to not do that, meaning raise his hands in sujood, meaning to go down to sujood or after rising from sujood. So this hadith is regarding raising the hands in the salah, in the movements, and also in the beginning of the salah. First of all, we should know that the pillar from that is saying Allahu Akbar to start the prayer. Saying Allahu Akbar to start the prayer, this is the pillar. And as for raising the hands while saying so, is recommended. It is not an obligation and not a pillar. However, one should not leave it merely for being recommended, but rather one should fulfill it and one should perform it as a worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the people of knowledge, they've differed in regards to what is the wisdom. Why do we raise our hands? The strongest opinion is that this is a obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and following the way of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And there are other statements of the people of knowledge, meaning that one would be coming towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in worship and seeking nearness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and things of the likes of these things, or that it is from the beauty of the salah. And there are many different statements of the people of knowledge. Nevertheless, it is a worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by way of obedience to Allah and to His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and by way of following the way of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam in his prayer. And so this hadith, it tells us, first of all, we should know that there is a long difference of opinion between the people of knowledge in regards to when are the hands raised in the salah. However, this hadith tells us of three places, and there's a fourth one based upon other evidences. In general, we find that raising the hands in the salah, we find from the hadith is that raising the hands is to the level of the shoulders. As we mentioned in the hadith, that one raises his hands to the level of his shoulders. And as we mentioned before, there is a mistake that some people do, and it is that they put their thumbs behind their ears. There is no evidence of that. And as a matter of fact, some of the people of knowledge, they say this is from the form of going extreme and being having OCD and being always in doubt in regards to the worship. Is it correct? Is it not correct? Meaning, did I raise my hands correctly? Did I raise them to the right level? Did I go too low? And then they put their hands behind their ears to be on the safe side. There is no saying on the safe side in this case. Rather, this is what the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to do. Raise his hands to the level of his shoulders. And that's it. Some people, they are lazy. They raise their hands merely like this to the level of their chest. This is from laziness. And rather, do what the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to do. He used to raise his hands to the level of his shoulders. So we collect that from this hadith. And as we said, it is recommended. And there are 4 times in which it is recommended. The first one is in the beginning of the salah. When the person wants to start the salah, he says Allahu Akbar and he raises his hands. The second time is before going down to ruku', before bowing down. The third time in the salah is when rising from ruku', when rising and raising one's head from bowing down. it is recommended to raise the hands and say سمع الله لمن حمده ربنا ولك الحمد. Raising the hands is recommended in this case. As for the statement, then it is an obligation. Saying سمع الله لمن حمده would be an obligation. Now, and then going down to rising from the first tashahhud, from the first sitting down. So this is in regards to prayers that are of more than 2 units of prayer, such as the prayer of Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib and Isha. Those prayers are all 4 except for Maghrib. It is 3 units of prayer. So after the second unit of prayer, the person sits down to say at-tashahhud, at-tahiyyat, at-tahiyyatu lillahi was-salawat wat-tayyibat, to the end of it. The person sits down and says them. After saying that, it is recommended, and one wants to get up to the 4th rak'ah, to the 3rd rak'ah, to the 3rd unit of prayer. After standing, it is recommended to say Allahu Akbar, and one raises his hands after standing to the 3rd unit of prayer. And this is the majority of the people of knowledge. This is what they say. Of course, there are other things, and there's a lot of detail and a lot of discussion regarding the difference of opinion between the people of knowledge regarding this matter. Whoever wants to learn more regarding this matter, they can go back, especially to the book of Shaykh al-Imam al-Albani rahimahullah, صفة صلاة النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم, the description of the prayer of the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم. And also from this hadith, it is clear that the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not raise his hands before going to sujood or after getting up from sujood, before going to prostration or after getting up from prostration. And like I said, go back if you want more details on those matters, because there is also a slight difference of opinion between the people of knowledge regarding that. And you can go to the book of Imam al-Albani rahimahullah regarding this matter if you want more detail. And of course, he leans towards another opinion. We will leave it for whoever wants to do more research and study this matter more. Inshallah, they can. But nevertheless, these matters should not cause any enmity between the brothers, should not cause any hatred between the brothers, and rather these matters, meaning it is a recommended matter, and it is a matter in which the people of knowledge have always differed upon. So it is permissible to differ upon these matters as long as one looks into the evidences and the proofs and follows them. And then the author rahimahullah, since the hadith is short, inshallah we will read the next hadith. The author rahimahullah, he said, عن عبد الله بن عباس رضي الله عنهما أنه قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أمرت أن أسجد على 7 أعظم على الجبهة وأشار بيديه إلى أنفه واليدين والركبتين وأطراف القدمين متفق عليه. So under the authority of Abdullah ibn Abbas, may Allah be pleased with them, that the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, I was commanded, meaning I was commanded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He sallallahu alayhi wasallam was commanded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to prostrate on 7 bones or 7 limbs, on 7 parts of the body. So umirtu, I was commanded, meaning I was commanded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam was commanded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and therefore it is also a command for all of us to prostrate, to make sujood on 7 limbs or 7 bones or 7 parts of the body. قال على الجبهة, on the forehead. وأشار بيده إلى أنفه, and he pointed with his hand to his nose. Of course, the nose is not a part of the forehead per se. Yani linguistically, the nose is not a part of the forehead. However, the Messenger ﷺ pointing to his nose, it is an indication that when one prostrates, when one makes sujood, that he puts his head, both his forehead and his nose, on the ground. And this is by way of humbling oneself to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For this reason, the person is closest and nearest to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when performing sujood. During that time, when performing sujood, because he puts the most noble part of his body, his forehead and his face, on the ground for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, this is a great worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to prostrate during the salah. وأشار بيده إلى أنفه, so he pointed with his hand to his nose. قال واليدين, and the hands, meaning the palms of the hands. The palms of the hands touch the ground. This is how it is supposed to be. Some people, again, out of laziness, they do not spread out their hands and they put them like this, where the hand is not necessarily touching the ground. This is not proper. So the hands should be touching the ground, and we will talk about if the person has a rug or the likes. We will talk about it in a minute, inshallah. In general, the hands should touch the place of prostration completely, and the fingers should be pointing towards the direction of the Kaaba, the direction of the prayer. And likewise, the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, وَالْيَدَيْنِ وَالرُّكْبَتَيْنِ, and the knees, وَأَطْرَافِ الْقَدَمَيْنِ, and the toes, Likewise, the toes should be bent, where the toes are pointing towards the direction of the Qibla. So they are bent forward. And the people of knowledge, they collected from this hadith. First of all, we should know that it is an obligation, because the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, I was commanded. And a command means an obligation unless otherwise stated, unless there's an evidence to remove that obligation. And in this case, there is no evidence to say that this is not an obligation and is recommended. And therefore, it is an obligation to when prostrating, to touch all of those parts of the body, to touch the ground with all of those parts of the body, those 7 parts. The forehead, including the forehead itself, and the nose, because the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he pointed to his nose, so it should be understood that it is both. And the palms of the hands, the knees, and the toes should be touching the ground. And this is an obligation, like we said, and this is the strongest opinion. And also the people of knowledge, like I said, they talk about if there is a barrier between the person and the ground. Is it permissible? First of all, if it is the barrier that we are talking about is one of the parts of prostration, meaning that one puts his hands on the ground and then puts his forehead on his hands, then that is not correct, because one would not be touching the ground with his forehead. So this would not be correct, and that is not permissible. And if there is a barrier between the person and the ground that the person is wearing, such as a imama, a head covering, or gloves or the likes, if it is something that the person is wearing, other than of course the footwear such as al-khuf, socks or sandals and the likes, that is a different matter. However, the hands and the face, the forehead, if there is a barrier that the person is wearing, if the person is wearing something that is a barrier between him and the ground, then the people of knowledge, they say it is disliked unless there is a reason. If there is a reason, such as the ground being too hot or too cold, or that the ground is there are thorns, or the ground is very rough and it is difficult to prostrate on it, then there is no harm. Even if the person was wearing this barrier, such as gloves, like we said, or imama, or something, a mask that's covering the face, or anything like that, there is no harm bi'idhnillahi ta'ala in that case, if there is a reason. And if there is no reason, then it is disliked. It is not impermissible, but it is disliked. In addition to that, if the barrier is disconnected from the person, meaning the person was not wearing this part of this barrier, this piece of cloth or whatever it is, like the rugs, then there is no harm. If it is a rug, there is no harm bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. It is not disliked, it is not impermissible, it is permissible. There is no harm. Finally, the people of knowledge, they talk regarding, and they mention what is regarding when a person is going down to perform sujood. Which part touches the ground first? Is it the knees or the hands? There is a very long disagreement and difference of opinion between the people of knowledge regarding this matter. And like I mentioned before, this should not cause any enmity or hatred between the brothers regarding this matter. However, it is okay to study it and to understand it based upon evidences. The strongest opinion regarding this matter is to put the hands before the knees. This is the strongest opinion, unless there is a reason, such as, for example, a person has backache or his knees hurt or something of that nature, and he has a need for him to put his knees first, then he should put his knees first. If there is a reason, if there's one way that is easier for the person than another, he should go with the easier. Our Shaykh Abdurrahman Al-Umaysan, Hafidhullah, he said the strongest opinion is go with what is easier for you. Go do what is easier for you in regards to putting the hands or the knees first. And in general, we lean towards the opinion that the hands touch the ground before the knees when going down to perform sujood, because the Messenger ﷺ, he said, وَلْيَضَعْ يَدَيْهِ قَبْلَ رُكْبَتَيْهِ, let him put his hands before his knees. But of course, even this hadith, there's a long discussion from the people of knowledge regarding whether or not there's some of the words have been changed mistakenly by some of the narrators of the hadith. It will take more than the time of this class to actually explain why do they think that the words were flipped. Some of the people of knowledge, and it is based upon an evidence, not that this is what they liked or they disliked. Of course not. This is not the way of the people of knowledge. There is an evidence that some of the people of knowledge, they used to say that the words are flipped in the hadith mistakenly by some of the narrators. Like I said, the strongest opinion, and Allah knows best, is that the strongest opinion that the sunnah is to put the hands before the knees. To put the hands before the knees, unless there is a reason. And those are some of the benefits in those two ahadith. And inshallah, we will stop here. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.